Welcome to Pera's Playbook. This is your host, Alex Pera. Let's open up our playbook and see who our guest is. Please enjoy. Welcome to episode 89 of Pera's Playbook. Today I'm joined by Paul Gardner. He played in the NHL for the Colorado Rockies, the Maple Leafs, the Capitals, Penguins, and Sabres. Played 463 NHL games with 410 points and 268 AHL games with 435 points. Paul, thanks for joining me. How you doing?
Great, very well, thanks. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. You you had a long career, really, you had a scoring touch, as some articles I read said. So I'm looking forward to diving into that. But before we talk about your career, I wanted to talk about kind of growing up in a hockey family with your dad playing in the NHL, and your brother being a player, eventually also playing in the NHL.
Well, I guess I was blessed. I didn't realize it at the time when you're young and everything. You would travel places with your father, and everybody wanted to shake his hand or talk to him and everything. But I think he was like a lot of fathers. He just took us to our games, and he'd go sit in the corner and watch, and we'd talk hockey a little bit on the way there and after the game. But he never pushed us, my brother or I, into hockey. We played baseball and golf as a family in the summertime. Hockey was certainly something that he knew we enjoyed, so he made sure that we got to the right places to play and the right teams. And my mom was a nurse, and so she took care of the injuries and stuff. And dad traveled a little bit, so he wasn't always there all the time. But I was very blessed to have him and his guidance. And then the older I got, I started to realize, who he was. He was a Stanley Cup champ in Toronto and had scored a Stanley Cup winning goal. So everybody wanted a piece of him. And my dad loved to talk. He was everybody's friend. And so sometimes leaving places was hard to do. But as when it came to hockey, again, he didn't push us or anything. He would play with us in the backyard sometime, as much as he could, and he just let us be ourselves.
That's awesome. Did he, was he always, watching your games, throughout and then giving you pointers? Oh, hey, you should have done this different, or hey, you should have done that different?
Very, very little. Before the game, he always just told us, we'd be in the car or drop us off, and he'd go park the car, just to work hard and keep your head up. That was his biggest thing, was to tell you to keep your head up. And going home the odd time, he'd discuss the game, but maybe for a minute or two. Again, it wasn't ever a 20-minute ride home with, going through every shift or anything like that. He was very calm when it came to, talking hockey, or if we had a question, he'd certainly obviously answer it. But again, it was, how's our school grades? He didn't go very far in school, and he made sure my brother David and I went a long way, as long as we could in school. And my brother David was the same way. He wouldn't say a whole lot about my game or anything like that, but he'd just give a few pointers and different things. But the best thing for me was my brother David let me play in the backyard games, and my dad had a rink out back, so he'd let me play with the older guys, and I think that was a big help. But we never sat around and said, oh, I want to play in the NHL, or I want to go here, or I want to go there. I think it quietly came naturally for both of us, and we were both very blessed.
Yeah. Well, speaking of playing in the NHL, you were drafted by a team that there's probably a lot of people that don't even know it ever existed, the Kansas City Scouts, but you never ended up playing for them because then it moved to the Colorado Rockies.
Correct. I was drafted by the Kansas City Scouts in the first round, and I was drafted by the Toronto Toros of the WHA in the second round. And both teams moved. Kansas City moved to Colorado, and the Toros moved to Birmingham, became the Birmingham Bulls. So a couple of weeks after the draft, I didn't have a team to really talk to or anything, but we were waiting to see what Kansas City was doing. And Pittsburgh called my father. Baz Bastine was the general manager, and he said, we've made the drafting for Kansas City. They had no employees, and if they fold, we have Paul's rights. So I knew that if it had folded, I was going to Pittsburgh. Ironically, I ended up there later on, but my agent, Mr. Eagleson, asked me once we got it all straight, where do you want to go? And I wanted to play in the NHL, so I signed with Colorado, and was very fortunate to make the club after a month in the minors.
And once you got there, you had a lot of early success. You were almost a point per game for your first 3 seasons, but then they ended up trading you, which I found interesting. I feel like usually when you're playing well, you don't get traded.
Yeah, we. When I look back on it, it was a surprise. I think again, I was leading the team in my third year. I think at the time I had 23 goals, which was most on the team, but the team was struggling, and they had made a coaching change. Pat Kelly was our coach, and they relieved him of his duties. A gentleman named Aldo Guidlin took over, not Bep Guidlin, but Aldo. He was our director of player personnel and head of scouting, and he had scouted 2 center icemen and drafted that year. And so when he took over coach, he wanted his center iceman to get more ice time, and I think that was the driving force behind it. Him and I didn't really see eye to eye, even though I was leading the team in scoring, and my name kept popping up to be traded, and fortunately ended up being traded to my hometown, Toronto.
You had to be pretty excited to get to play with some of the guys that were on that Toronto team. There were a lot of legends of the game on that team. That had to be exciting once you figured out where you were going to go back home and then to get to play with some greats.
Yeah, it was. It was really special to get there, and it's some of my friends talked to me when I was in Colorado. You were at the time, or most of your career there, where you were the number one center iceman and number one power play. And when I came to Toronto, I was immediately on the fourth line. I was the guys they put out at, when we needed a goal or we were struggling, sort of thing. But guys like Daryl Sittler and Lanny McDonald and Boreas Salming, I could go through them all. They were a great bunch of guys. They were a great team, and I was just so happy to be part of it. And I thought we were extremely close to being a cup champion, even though we lost to Montreal in the playoff round. 3 of the 4 games were in overtime, and I thought we were right there. If we could have made maybe another trade or two the next year, we could have got on to win the cup. But again, it was a great experience to be in my hometown and be a Toronto Maple Leaf, and like my father was, it was really special.
Right. Was it difficult then when you went down to the AHL for a little bit?
Well, yeah, it was. But Toronto became just they were getting rid of everybody and making change. They got rid of Roger Nielsen, our coach, and Jim Gregory, the general manager, who were 2 great guys, especially Mr. Gregory. He was a tremendous general manager, even though I only had him for a while. They were making all kinds of changes, and hockey was not fun for the Maple Leafs at the time. There was, every day was a crisis and everything. So the minors isn't where you want to go, but I guess it became a relief for me to go down and play and put some points up, and hopefully get myself available to somebody else, because I wasn't getting much ice time in Toronto, and we weren't winning or anything like that. So the biggest thing was to go down and put some points up, and not pout and not be upset, just show that you can still play. So that's what I did, and I again was very fortunate to put quite a few points up, and then in a year get traded to Pittsburgh.
And then when you got to Pittsburgh, I was reading some article, and I think the words were you regained your scoring touch in the NHL is what it said in the article.
Well, I got ice time in the NHL. I think not to brag or pat myself on the shoulder, but when I got ice time in the NHL, I was always able to find a way to score. So I think I had the scoring touch. It's just didn't get the ice time in Toronto and got demoted. But I got to Pittsburgh, and they were short at center ice, and Eddie Johnson was my coach, and put me right on the power play with Ricky Kehoe and Randy Carlisle, a couple of great players, and just told them I'll be around the net and I'll bang stuff in or tip stuff, and I was able to do that. And we had a great power play, and I had quite a bit of success in Pittsburgh. Enjoyed it again. Enjoyed. You enjoy every day that you're playing in the NHL, but to play in Pittsburgh and be a regular player for 3.5 years was great.
I mean, you got to play for some of the most notable, franchises in NHL history. When you look at the Maple Leafs, the Penguins, the Sabres, the Capitals, having to get a little piece of each team. And that's, some guys, I guess you could look at, they played for expansion teams that really didn't last. And not that that takes anything away from a career, but it's a little more special when you get to play for some of these really notable clubs.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, playing for the Maple Leafs, even though it was somewhat short lived, it was obviously something I'll never forget, and I'm very proud of. Uh, and then going back when I do go back to Toronto, it's great to go back there, and everywhere you go around North America, anyways, people know the Toronto Maple Leafs. So if I wear a shirt like I have on right now or something, everybody wants to talk hockey. So it's very very special. It's the other thing, as you say, I played in Colorado, and people at that time didn't know hockey or NHL hockey, anyways, and everything. My dad, to his dying day, thought it cost me the Calder Cup trophy because we always played in Central Time, and our games were never finished or anything. So they never saw our stats or they never saw replays or anything. And having 59 points in 60 games as a rookie, he thought I should have got a little higher voting in it, anyways. But again, it was a pleasure to play in the big leagues, to play for some of these franchises, and to later on work for them was it's a gift. I mean, and you sit back when you're 15 or 16, wonder what's going to happen with your life. And I was so fortunate to have 40 some years in professional hockey.
Towards the end of your career, you played a lot in the AHL, and you had a lot of success. You had a 142-point year and 112-point year. I mean, that had to be kind of exciting for you towards the end to know you could still play with the young kids and and still put up some points and skate around.
Yeah, I was. Again, I was blessed with a scoring touch. I had the offensive touch, and I just was playing down in the minors, hoping to get another chance, and it didn't seem to come. But uh, I love to win. I love to be part of winning, and that's what I tried to do in the minor league teams. We in Binghamton and in Rochester, we had real good teams, and I was able to put up some points and win a couple of scoring titles, which was a nice way to end. But I had some back troubles late on, and if I wasn't getting a chance in the NHL, it was time to retire. But fortunately, my playing in Rochester, and our third string goalie was Bobby McNamara, and he didn't get much playing time, so I would work with him. And when I decided to retire, his dad was the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Jerry McNamara, and he gave me a call and he says, "My son tells me you'd be a great coach." And I said, "Well, that'd be something I'd love to try." And so that's how I was able to step right into coaching. Mr. McNamara hired me right away after my playing days.
And then you coached in variety of places, a variety of levels and leagues. One I found the most interesting was when you were with the Portland Pirates 11 years after retirement. And I see that you had to step in and play a game. You actually got an assist in that game
Yeah.
as the coach. Will you tell us that story?
Yeah, we were in the minors. You never have enough players for practice, and Barry Trotz and I coached Baltimore, and then in Portland. And so when we would practice, say 75% of the time, we'd be short a left winger or short a defenseman to do the drills. So a lot of the time, I put equipment on and I would go out and practice with the guys that way to help the drills. So we'd have 4 lines or 6 defensemen or make a scrimmage a little bit better. And it was my way of keeping in shape and being able to still eat pizza and have the odd beer and not put too much weight on. So I enjoyed the practicing with the guys. And we came into Syracuse one night, and we were supposed to get 3 players sent down, and their flight got canceled. And I think it was we only had 12 guys, and so we had to have 13 to play. And so I looked at Barry and said, just sign a contract. So we signed a contract that afternoon, and I suited up and got out on a power play and actually deflected one, and the rebound went right to Yogi Stakowski, and Yogi buried it, and it was we just all laughed on the bench, and the boys went on to win 5-1. They were so, I think, hyped up from us scoring and me getting an assist and stuff. But it was a fun night, yeah, that's for sure.
Was it hard at all to play an actual game? I mean, I know you said you'd been practicing, but game is a little different.
Yeah, no, I only played the one shift. Everybody doesn't
Okay.
realize that. Once it was early in the second period. I didn't play in the first, and it was early in the second period, and we got a 5-on-3 power play, and Barry knew that I was itching sort of to get out there, and the guys were getting tired. So I said, let me go in front of the net on the power play. And so put me out there, and I was probably out 40 seconds when we finally scored. And then I think that made it 2-1 for us. And then the next shift we scored to make it 3-1. And a little later we made it 4-1. And Barry said, I think you had enough. We'll just keep coaching. And so the guys did a great job. But and then there was a gentleman there, and I don't know his name, but he picked the 3 stars. They gave me third star for my one shift and assist. But it was nice to 11 years later be able to go out on the ice and contribute.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool story, kind of a unique statistic, unique story.
Right. Yeah.
So I also was reading that you did some work with the Nashville Predators when they were a expansion team. So I wonder if you could talk about kind of the process and what you had to do with that.
Okay. Well, we Barry Trotz and I were coaching in Portland, Maine, and it was for the Washington Capitals of their farm team, and David Poyle was the general manager of Nashville, and I'd worked, I guess, 7 or 8 years with David, and so at Barry we'd worked together. And David got fired from Washington and gave us a call about 2 months later and said, "Don't sign anywhere else." He said, "I might have a surprise for you guys." And David ended up being announced the general manager of the Nashville Predators, and he flew up to Portland and talked to Barry and I about being the coaches. And so obviously Barry was the head coach and I was going to be the assistant, but we had a year to put the team together. So we moved immediately to Nashville and got our offices there, and then hit the road. We saw more hockey games, Barry and I, that year than you could dream about. If there was, 2 games in a day, one in an afternoon somewhere and one at night, we were driving and flying and everywhere to try and scout players to put the team together. So it was an extremely busy year, but it was exciting. And then when we would get back to Nashville, we would be designing the dressing room, helping with the design of the jerseys, just getting our 2 cents into everything. So it was extremely exciting year to be employed by an NHL team, but it was probably the busiest year of my career. And then moving my family to Nashville and everything. But we got it all done and started a franchise, and I was able to coach for the first 5 years there with Barry as an assistant coach. And then the strike came along, and funds became difficult for the franchise for a little bit, and they let quite a few of us go. So at that time I was let go.
That's pretty cool to say that you had a part in building a franchise, one that's still here today, as there, a few of those expansion teams didn't last very long, like the Atlanta Thrashers. It didn't last super long, but you can say you were part of one. Well, it's still here and it's still a relevant franchise.
Right. It was again. You worried how it was going off the start, and some of the nights, we didn't have great crowds, and but we put a competitive team together. And David Boyle, for the 24 years I think he was a general manager, he did a great job there keeping it going. And I think that we got to the Cup Finals once there. But yeah, it's a great franchise now. You can't get a ticket going to the games. It's a loud building, and they got one of my favorite players back coaching, Andrew Burnett, who I coached in Portland, and the Washington organization, is now the head coach there, and he's just a a terrific guy, and wishing him nothing but success behind the bench.
Yeah. So then did you guys have to do the like expansion draft where you picked players from each team in the NHL that weren't protected?
Yes, yeah, we did that. Probably Barry and the scouts and David and I probably did that 20 times in the last 2 months. We'd have a mock draft every night, and some of our scouts would act as different general managers and things just to go through what might happen. But we were fully prepared. We put in an awful lot of hours of trying to figure out what was going on, and everything, and trying to make deals with some of the general managers. Our scouting in the last 2 months or so of the season was on specific players, and Scotty Walker and Thomas Vokoun and things like that. So it was again a hectic time, lots of hours. But when I look back on it, it was great, great learning experience. But it was great to be part of it, and then to see the opening night, to see the franchise, and to see the success of it. Um, it was terrific. Again, it's great to be part of it, and proud to say I'm part of it.
Yeah, yeah, it's very special, and not everyone can say they had a part in building a franchise.
Right. I just didn't have the money. Mr. Leopold. Mr. Leopold had all the money, and he was terrific too. He backed everything we wanted to do, and now he's the owns the Minnesota Wild. But he was a terrific owner.
So then when the strike happened, is that when you headed overseas to start coaching?
Right. I got out of the blue. Nowhere did I ever imagine I got a call to go to Russia, and I got a call from an agent in New York, and said we're looking for a coach over in Russia in the Yaroslavl, and your name keeps coming up for some reason, and would you be interested? And wasn't quite sure all of that and everything, but discussed it with my wife and everything, and we said, well, let's give it a try. And so I went over there and had some great experiences, some different experiences, but a lot of fun with the players and everything. And glad that I did it. Unfortunately, a couple of years later, I lost quite a few friends in the plane crash of the team. But going to Russia was a terrific experience, and I still on Facebook have quite a few friends over there. I made a lot of friends, and again, the players were terrific.
Did you have to learn how to speak Russian before you went over there?
No, in fact, once I got the job, I only had 2 days to get a visa
Oh,
and get over there. They had to get a special person in New Jersey get my passport made to go to Russia and everything. No, I was over there in 2 days. Now, 90% of the players spoke English, and I would say 7 or 8 of them had played in North America, so they all knew that. The around the arena was able to use quite a bit of English in the stores. The few times I went, nobody knew English, so it was a lot of pointing, a lot of hoping. My wife came over to visit, and when she needed a curler for her hair because it didn't work in the outlets there and everything, and I had to call one of my players to talk to the lady in the store to try and tell her what we needed. There was a couple of experiences where we were scared, but for the wrong reason. I got followed through a grocery store once by a security guard and two other people, and I had no idea if I had done something wrong. And I found out later he was just a big hockey fan and was following me around the store. But same thing happened to my wife and I. We were out walking in a snowstorm one night, and a car stopped, and three guys jumped out, and we were scared for our lives, literally, and all they wanted was an autograph, and it was it was a great experience, and hang a few things in my house with the locomotive on it and everything, but it was certainly different.
right.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, different, isn't always bad. You got some
right.
good stories out of it, good memories. And
Right.
I'd be pretty scared too. Heck, I'd be scared if I was somewhere in the States on a walk and a car pulled up and a bunch of people walked out in a
Right.
snowstorm, in Russia, and now you're in a
Yeah.
new country, and it
Right.
just adds to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Was the coaching harder at all to adjust, with a little different play style over there?
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it was hard for me to adjust. It was harder for the Russian management to adjust to my style. They wanted two practices every day. They wanted weightlifting some days, and I just found it way too much. And well,
Excuse me.
they didn't really care sometimes for my style. But when I got there, I had a veteran goaltender who got hurt, and I put in a young goaltender for his first couple starts. Oh, I just lost his name. He's in the Islanders right now, and I can't think of his name. Anyways, we won 9 in a row with him in goal, and he was absolutely terrific playing. And so I was giving the players, some morning skates off and different things like that. And the Russian management, the upper management, did not like it at all. They wanted the players in lifting weights and doing this, and the players would come to me and say, "We've never felt better on the ice. We feel rested and strong." And so that was our differences over there. I think over the year that I was there, I think my record as a coach was like 40-15, but they just didn't like my ways, and so we parted ways the second season. But again, it was the Russian mentality was different. The president of the team had his thoughts and his ways, and he got tired of my ways, I think.
So they were pretty stubborn. They had no interest in changing.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it was the Russian way, or I guess the highway sort of thing, and that's exactly what happened. But again, great experience. I got to meet some great people, some great players, and Yashin and some of them played for me over there, and it was terrific.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit
Yeah,
about. Oh,
Semen
go ahead.
Varlamov. Semen
Oh,
Varlamov was
yes,
was
the
the goalie.
goalie.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
18 years old, and I put him in goal, and I had heard that he was good, and we won 9 in a row, and they thought I could walk on water, but he was playing great. And I had a great bunch of guys and stuff like that. So yeah, so I owe quite a bit to Semen Varlamov.
And now he's having a pretty good NHL career.
He's had a great career. Yeah, it's been really really happy for him.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, kind of your thoughts on. I like getting guys' thoughts on the way the game has changed. The style of play has changed a lot from when you played to now. It's more of a pure skill game, speed. There's less fighting. There's less. The they make more calls with hits and various things, and kind of what your thoughts are on the way the game has changed.
Yeah, it's totally different game. I wish my father was still alive and he could be part of this, because he thought it was a totally different game when I played. That it was much rougher back when he played. But yeah, the game was it was New Jersey won a couple of times, but they said by hooking and holding in the neutral zone and slowing the game down. And there's some great skill now. The athletes. The guys that play now are absolutely great. They're big, strong men, and they train 12 months of the year. They've got great speed and great skill. It's certainly much faster game, but it's different. It's um, you all had to know how to fight back in our day. You didn't always have to, but it was rough and tumble. You going into Philadelphia some nights, they were the reputation as the bad street bullies. You knew that the gloves were coming off at some point, and again, you couldn't stand in front of the net without somebody cross-checking you or pushing you, or grabbing your stick. And I'd love to play one season where they couldn't grab my stick in front of the net. It was it'd be a penalty, because the defense would just I wasn't the quickest guy, and they just grab my stick and hold on and make it difficult and everything. But again, it's a great game to watch. Now I think one day we're going to have to go to the bigger European ice because the players are just they just don't get room to maneuver. And if you get and watch the Olympics or the European games over there, they get more time to show their skill, and I think the people would enjoy that a great deal. But the players today are tremendous, tremendous athletes. We went together teams. We were a family. We went out to lunch together and had fun together, and then battled together. And again, a totally different game from back then till now. But both of them were enjoyable to watch.
You mentioned fighting. Did you get in many fights?
Uh, two or three a year, not very often, but two or three a year. I wasn't shy away from it, but it wasn't something that you went out and thought, well, I've got to fight tonight. I know in my draft year back in junior, I fought a big defenseman named Brad Marsh. He was a great NHL defender, and but we fought, and I caught him with a lucky punch, and down he went. And they said it moved my draft up from the second round to the first round. So my dad was pretty tough, and my grandfather was boxing champ of Manitoba. So uh, I knew how to fight and everything, but I didn't go looking for it. But two or three times a year, the gloves would come off.
Yeah, if you had to do it, you could.
Right, right.
Is that your Maple Leafs jersey on the wall behind you there?
No, that's a pretty special one right there. My dad scored the Stanley Cup winning goal in 1948-49, and for scoring the goal, they gave him his jersey. And he didn't really even tell us about it when he was younger. He just kept it upstairs in a cupboard and folded away. And I found out about it, I guess, when I was 18 or 19. And I asked my mom, I said, whatever you're going to do with that, I'd love to have that jersey. And 15 years later, my dad came to Nashville and to visit me when I was coaching there. And he said he was cold. He needed his sweater out of his suitcase upstairs. And I went upstairs, and the jersey was there, and I brought it down, and he gave it to me. And so we had it specially framed with special glass and everything. And it's hangs here in our office, and my wife knows that the if the house is on fire, I'm getting the jersey first, and then I'll come back and get her next. So, but yeah,
That's cool.
it's very special to me, but it's become special to my family. My oldest son has tried to collect some of my jerseys, so I think he's got his eye on that one day. But we'll see. Right now, that stays in my possession.
Yeah, no, that's a really cool story that you have that special jersey from your dad. Do you know why he just kept it in a cupboard? You know, he didn't want to show people, hey, this is my special.
No, he never talked much about his playing days or his. He didn't have much up in the house of pictures of himself or anything. We had a room in the basement that had a pool table, and so we had a few trophies of my brother and mine down there, and then he had a couple mixed in, and there was a couple of pictures of him with Boston. But if you came into the house and didn't go down in the basement, you wouldn't have known that Dad had played in the NHL or that we were a sports people. It was just, I guess, his way. He just didn't brag about it or anything. Uh, he just was himself. Fun guy, always loved to laugh, pulled jokes and everything, and then made sure that David and I got our school grades. That was the biggest thing always. Anytime he'd go away travel or anything, homework was the first thing that he would talk about.
Yeah, that's pretty cool too. I mean, the fact that he played in the NHL, but he didn't brag to people, and that he made sure school was so important. You know, I feel like you see some athletes and, well, geez, they just can't stop bragging about how awesome they are, and you know they don't go to college or they don't finish. I guess more nowadays you'll see basketball players, they play 1 year in college and then they leave and they never finish their school and whatnot. So I think it's really cool that your dad valued that.
Yeah, again, when you were 13 or 14, and he was harping on you to do your homework. you maybe didn't like it then, but when I look back on it, it was the way, and now it's the way with my children. I have 5 children, and we made sure all of them did well in school. They've all graduated from college and headed in the right directions and things like that. But yeah, school is very important, and it was to Dad. He realized that he didn't go far enough in it, and but it was always the number one thing in our household.
Yeah, yeah, very special because you never know when your playing career is going to end or if you're going to have a coaching career. Best to have some education so you can do something with your life if you
Well,
have to.
yeah, you look at my family now. My son is in his last year of college baseball and had a chance maybe to be drafted. A couple teams had talked to him, and then he tore his ACL, and his career was basically over. So he's going to be a history teacher, and he's going to coach baseball. But you just never know what happens
Right.
in life. So school was a backup, but again, in our family, it was number one.
Yeah, definitely important. So all the athletes, younger athletes listening to this episode, you might not want to when you're in high school or college. It might not seem important then, but it could be someday.
And it's easy for athletes to go the right. Nowadays people are patting them on the back all the time, and with social media, the parents are boasting how good their son or their daughter are, and rightfully so. You're proud of them, but sometimes the players or athletes, girls too, get reading this and they forget about school and forget about the necessity. So social media, I think, has hurt us in that aspect. Not sitting here preaching or anything like that. But our society's different now, and you just never know from one day to the next what's going to happen, and just try and prepare for everything.
Right. I mean, yeah, and it translates. If you work hard in school and you work hard in your sports and you work hard in life, I mean, it all flows together.
Exactly what it is. Yep, hard work will pay off.
Yep. Well, Paul, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Really enjoyed speaking with you about your career. Thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. Please stay tuned for more episodes soon.